Hello, everyone. My name is Katherine Kreidler, and I'm with the National Sports Media Association. And today I have the pleasure to interview Mr. Kevin McNamara from Rhode Island, who's the National Sports Winner of the Year. So thank you so much for joining me.
You're welcome, Catherine.
So, congratulations on winning. And what was your reaction when you found out?
Well, it's great. Always enjoy that phone call from Dave. It's the, I believe, third time that I've won this.
Oh, yay.
Um, Been nominated a couple times in both sports writing and sports media, the other side, the
Okay.
radio TV side. So maybe one time I'll be able to win the radio TV side. We'll see. But always a thrill.
That's awesome. So were you always interested in like sports growing up, or how did that interest come about?
Very much so. At a young age, we all think we can play, and then we all think we can coach. And I did have some coaching dreams when I went to college. I went to college at Syracuse,
Okay.
and basketball was always my game. I played high school basketball, and again, thought I wanted to get into the coaching game. That went sideways a little bit, and I worked at a work study job in the sports information office at Syracuse and got to meet several media people when they came in to cover basketball or football games. And I quickly realized that I know I can do that because I had written in high school for the local newspaper in Rhode Island, and that's pretty much where my focus turned, and it's worked out quite well.
That's awesome. So, when you were doing like the newspaper and all of that, did you have any role models or people who you were looking up to that kind of helped inspire you to do that or anything?
I did. It's funny when people say, how do you get good at, sports writing or sports casting? I think I wouldn't say one of the easiest things to do because it's not easy at all,
Hmm.
certainly to excel. But it's easy to study. I often think, if I'm a lawyer, to your question, how do you learn to be a good lawyer? Do you go to court all day? And in sports writing and sports casting, you turn on the TV, you turn on the radio, and you read a lot. And
Hmm.
I'm an avid reader. I read a ton. I again grew up in Rhode Island, so we were blessed with some really good sports writers in New England, both at the
Hmm.
Providence Journal when I was a young guy, and then the Boston Globe has had a historic run of sports writers as well.
Hmm.
So I just read a lot, Catherine, and that really, really helped I'm not saying you copy because you don't copy, but in order to get your own style, I think you just borrow from who you like.
Right. And like broadening your vocabulary and everything. That's
Hmm.
awesome. Um, so you mentioned Boston. Was that your first job?
No, my first job was actually in Providence.
Okay.
Back in the day, as they say, the newspapers were totally different world. Awful lot of money, big travel budgets in the 1980s and 90s. And they also had paid summer internships, which I'm sure
Hmm.
you and your friends would have been interested in during your college time. Now it's, everyone's free and everyone's
Yeah.
thrilled to be hired for an internship for no money. I was paid quite well, and I covered the AAA Pawtucket Red Sox in Rhode Island. That was my main deal in the summer of, I guess that was the summer of '87. And I guess I did a good enough job because when I graduated the next year, I was hired full time by the Providence Journal that August.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. So then how long were you there?
I was there for 30 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, long time, and did an awful lot of
Yeah.
innings over those 30 years. I can tell you
Yeah,
that.
that's awesome. My dad worked on the business side for the Rockies for a little bit. So
Okay,
he could
yeah.
say the same thing about all the innings.
A lot of innings. Those people like to say, "Wow, did you cover the World Series?" Yeah, I covered the World Series, several World Series. It was an awful lot of fun. Those Red Sox Yankee series in the
Yeah.
2000s that were, so I was right there. They were great. But like your dad, I was also there during rainouts and
Mhm.
when the temperature was 36 degrees in April and whatnot. I never covered baseball full time, thank God. It was not my love. I enjoyed it. And I give those baseball beat writers and people like your dad, those club employees,
Yeah.
so much credit because it's every single day.
Right. Um, so what were like your biggest challenges early on in your career?
Well, I would say as a young reporter, the competition. So basically, I did college basketball. That was my
Okay.
main
Yeah.
deal. So Providence was in the Big East, and the Big East at that time was rolling, and you're challenged to scrape for stories that not only are in your market and in Providence, but also Big East wide and national wide. So the competition in sports uh, media and certainly in newspapers it was I think it was more intense then than it is now. Now it seems you break a story on Twitter um, and it goes around the country within a matter of minutes.
Yeah.
There it was quite different. I did if you had a scoop, you had a story, you'd have to sit on it for a certain amount of hours until the next morning's paper came out. Um, and that was always a thrill.
Mhm.
But I'd say those are the biggest challenges, and then balancing family and work. Because I was a traveling sports writer for roughly those entire 30 years. Two kids at home, so it was a challenge, but very rewarding, and really enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's great. What were some of your favorite or like most memorable stories that you've written about?
The great story or memorable stories and memorable games aren't necessarily the same thing.
Right,
Uh,
right.
and oftentimes I'd like to go back and say, geez, I remember that great game. What did I write? Most of my stories were on deadline. And oftentimes, you're writing them in a half an hour, in an hour and a half max, that type of thing. And, I always used to walk away from those tight deadline events, and that was easily 75% of what I did. And you're like, oh, I really don't like it. And then, you read it the next day in the paper or a few days later, you go back and read it and you're like, wow, that was really good. I'm very happy with it. So, some really good profiles over the years I remember there was a great player of Providence named Eric Williams who went on to play many years in the NBA, especially with the Celtics. Went back to his home in a tough part of Newark, New Jersey. Again, I was a young reporter at the time, and to go into the inner city with an All-American player was fun and eye-opening and rewarding and all that stuff. But some of the great nights, again, positives and negatives. I was there when Aaron Boone hit the home run to win the American League Championship Series in 2003. We had maybe four or five people from the newspaper covering the game in New York.
Okay.
They all went to the Red Sox. I went to see Aaron Boone, and I remember being in the scrum, somehow getting back upstairs to write the story in 15, 20 minutes or whatever it was, because it was well after midnight. And I thought myself, well, that's going to be one that people remember because we see that home run all the time come World Series and playoff time in baseball, Aaron Boone's home run.
Yeah, that's great. Um, was there like a particular moment in your career where you kind of had like an aha, like I kind of made it moment? Or
I often think of my first road trip. In all honesty, the I was covering the University of Rhode Island basketball team, and the first road trip happened to be the Holiday Festival. It was a basketball tournament that was held at Madison Square Garden in New York, and again, it has nothing to do with what I wrote, but at a really young age, I think I was probably only about 23. To be on the road in New York covering college basketball, that's what I wanted to do, and to
Mhm.
do it so quickly or at such a young age was certainly very rewarding. And I knew by then that I could do this, and eventually got to do it pretty well.
Madison Square Garden's really cool. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
definitely awesome.
Yeah.
So then I guess my final question is, do you have any advice for students or young professionals looking to pursue this same career?
Yeah, so there is still, it's funny. I just got back from the Final Four in San Antonio and talked with the people at the NCAA, and they said they had there was 780 media members.
Oh,
And
wow.
and I said, is that high, low? This is not as high as maybe 2 years ago, but it's high. So I was pleasantly surprised by that, Catherine,
Hmm.
because in this day and age, you think, media is dying. A lot of places are really struggling with their budgets, certainly their
Yeah.
travel budgets. I don't know who those people were, the 780. I'm sure an awful lot were TV people from CBS and TBS and whatnot, but there were a lot of writers, there were a lot of websites, and there may not be as many newspaper jobs where people can travel and live the life that I lived. But boy, there's so many websites where if you want to be a sports writer, it's going to be a challenge to start your own website and scramble for income. So the business model, everyone does it a little bit differently.
Hmm.
Some have, you end up going to an ESPN.com or a CBS.com or The Athletic, and those are the very best jobs. They're hard to get. There's not many of them.
Yeah.
But then there's many more, websites out there. If you can write, you have to show people that you can write. So it's
Mm.
very easy to start a website. I have a website myself, kevinmacsports.com. That's my avenue for writing right now. I also do a radio show in
Okay.
Providence. But if you want to write, you can write. And I'd say that's my advice is you have to show people that you can write. And in this day and age, you can publish yourself, and it's called the internet.
Hmm. Okay, that's awesome because there definitely are a ton of opportunities with that. And I don't know, I think while, like you said, the jobs are in like the big industries or like the big name brands like CBS getting a little bit more limited, there's still a lot of opportunities for other things out there.
No,
So,
absolutely. And, we're just coming off the Masters, and,
yeah.
I'm a very active, golf journalism.
Hmm.
I read and look at everything. And, from Instagram to X.com. There's so many different ways that people can get content out there.
Right.
Uh, be honest with you, some of them don't make any sense to me. And I'm like, why are they doing this? But they are entertaining, a little informative, and they're entertaining. And in this day and
Hmm.
age on the internet, uh, entertainment is probably 50-50 with information. Sometimes you're like, well, I have no idea what that's about, but boy, that was funny. And
Yeah,
it gets a lot of clicks. And getting clicks is the way of the world these days for sure.
exactly. That's hilarious. Well, thank you so much and congratulations on winning. It was so nice to talk to you.
Thank you. Nice to talk to you too.